Hey, Potstep Nippies, what's up? Hey, Ultra, yep. I can actually talk today. Office is the office is empty. There's no music, so you can put something on yourself. Mhm. 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 Yeah. Mm. Andrans, I went to visit Antwerp yesterday. Beautiful city, so clean. Ooh. Oh, did you send me that message on Instagram? I didn't send you any message on. Oh, okay. It was another guy who sent me a message like, "Hey, I'm in Antwerp." Mhm. Hey, Michelle, what's up? Am I in Antwerp for work? No, I live here. No, there is no studios in Antwerp. No, I just work here as a. I'm a freelancer, so yeah, we're in a shared office. So it's like a bunch of freelancers here, just doing their own thing, and so there's like two comic book artists slash illustrators. Then there's a garden designer. There's a university teacher. There's a publisher and another teacher. So I'm gonna have her look at the camera just to get some more connection to the viewer. A Zeold. Just smash the fly. Ding, ding, ding. So I'm all alone in the office. Mhm. So what are you guys up to? Are you drawing? Are you sketching personal stuff? Hey, feel free to share. So we got something to talk about. Setting up my workflow for school to start back next week. That's some man, real dedication. When I was in school, I was just try to not think about it right up till the day it starts again. Well, it depends. Like in university, when I was in art school, it was better. Even though I was still doing my own thing rather than what they thought of. I've a I had a quite a problem with authority in school. Nursing school, okay, yeah, but that's a different thing. No, it's good. It's good that you do it. I was thinking like high school. You should definitely do what you're doing. Where can I share? Yeah, you could share on the Discord or wherever. Like just post the link. Mm -mm -mm. Mm -mm -mm. Uh, I usually use a imager if I want to like upload something quickly. And for a while I was even posting on there publicly, but it just kind of stopped doing that. Imagination sketch based on exploration. Oh crap. I gotta log in. Okay, hold on. I usually use Discord on my phone, so. Do I do that? Scan code. Where's this? No, where's this? Scan code. All right. Is it this? All right, cool stuff. See, little tip here. If I can. What I usually do with the upper lip is like always give it some, like just a little bit of shade from the start, right? It's gonna help a lot. Like make that, and don't make that line, don't make these lines so sharp here, right? You're better off in flies, making them a lot softer, um, and then emphasizing the middle line more, right? And like the corners, right? It's kind of where you see deeper into the, right, even though it's closed, at some places of the lips you can kind of see deeper than other places. And I usually also do things like, instead of just using lines, I just kind of like add shadows from the from the get-go, kind of. Sort of to vary the line weight, I kind of add these little uh, little shadow shapes, right? So it's like instead of, and also instead of just making them a solid line, I kind of soften up the edges, right? So it gives this impression of ambient occlusion, basically. Just for your line, just with a slight emphasis of certain lines, you can get a lot more depth to your line work, basically. Like there's important lines and there's uh yeah, there's lines you draw because there's like for example this line here, right? Okay, you draw a line, but in reality that's all very, it's like this whole gradation system basically, because we got we're moving from the shadow to the light here, but in reality there's no actual sharp line there, right? So yeah, just make that kind of soft from the get-go, I'd say. um, and then for doing things like eyebrows, I don't know if you ever saw an eyebrow picture. So you can see there's a direction to the hairs, right? So first they kind of start going up, right? And then in the edge there, at the edge of the eyebrow, uh, you kind of have hairs that are not stuck to, they're kind of not following the rest of the hairs, right? So when I draw eyebrows, and when I'm doing my lines, instead of doing the scratching, I just kind of like follow the direction of those hairs to draw in the eyebrow, and that just gives like some like more interest to the to the lines. uh, Same thing here, for example, instead of just making one line, if you have like a hairline there at this at this part, there's usually some like, yeah, you usually have, if you look at it, for example, in the front, right, there's this there's this thing that's happening, right? So you gotta put a couple of lines there next to each other. That always helps, right? And then there's like some some loose hairs everywhere there too, right? Because that's kind of like the hair thickness is being like created, right, from all the layers of hair sitting on top of each other, right? And that's kind of what that underside is, right? You get a couple of layers of hair building up all of a sudden, right? So yeah, I usually put some more lines at that position, and then right, and then that kind of fades out. um, mhm. Yeah, what I kind of try to do is, when I do lines, I kind of have my own, of course you're free to do whatever you want, but I kind of see lines as something, if you look at a picture, for example, there's actually not a single, there's no actual lines, right, in a human body, right? There's only edges. So the most clear hard edge is the outline, right? uh, and an edge basically appears whenever the form is changing its uh, like uh, direction, right? So if you have a sphere, everything's kind of smooth, right? But imagine the wire frame, right, on this face, for example. Like if you have a sudden shift in angle of the form, there's gonna be an edge, right? So for example, here on the on the chin, right, you'd have something like this. Okay, that's seen from the side, right? Here's the ear, the mouth, right? So there's a sudden angle there, right? So instead of drawing a line, I would do some kind of, like shading, right? Instead of putting one solid line, I would already be like cross-hatching stuff, like here. So you're kind of giving a base to paint it, and you're making a more interesting drawing. Yeah, you're looking. So again, like here's a hard edge, right? And here you have the form. So you're kind of rendering from one hard edge to the next, right? This is the next hard edge. And then, this is one form. So this form will have its own, like, like lightest part, and you're kind of rendering towards that the fill light and the highlight, right? But then in some places, okay, you're still going from one hard edge to the next, but if you notice carefully, there's extra edges in this area, right? You have this little feature, you have some kind of edge here, right? But the difference is, like, those edges aren't as sharp, right? So each of these edges have their own kind of, like, how do you say that, profile, I would say. Like, this is very soft, right? And then this is a bit harder, but not as hard as the edge where the form ends, right? So now you're, instead of just doing this, you're rendering right up in this edge, and then you're going across, and then same thing here. You're kind of rendering up until this edge, and then going further, right? And then this edge fades out into this shape, right? So this edge here connects to the rest of the arm, right? So it fades into it. So it gradually becomes softer. This edge just the same, but it's quicker, right? It fades in it quicker, and then you still again have the the same deal as here. And here, for example, at the wrist, you got the same thing. You kind of have this edge here, right? It's like this little bone. So once you know anatomy, if you study anatomy, you study all the bones, you know what to look for, and it will go a lot faster, right? Because I know there's a bone in here, right? It's the head of the radius of the arm. You got the ulna and the radius, right? That's the head of the radius, right? So again, you render right up on this point, and then here's the kind of the other edge, right, of that anatomical feature. So you're going across this, and then like that, right? So you're looking for those edges everywhere, right? This is an edge. You're going towards this, and then like that, right? So you're going like that, and then like that, and then like that. Yeah, the head of the ulna, sorry, yeah, exactly. Yeah, the radius is the one that turns, and it's the one that that's wide at the thumb, right? It's the one that turns over the other. Yeah, and so once you start seeing that, those edges, you'll start to, see all the subtleties, right? So for example, in this area, you got this little edge here. It's from some fat overhanging fat. Not that this girl is, this girl doesn't have a lot of fat, but it's still some there. But you can see this the shirt is kind of cutting in her skin, right? So the cutting of the skin creates this little edge like that. So if I would be drawing this, I would find that edge and then start hatching like that, right until this, and then there's another one here, right? And then there's one that goes kind of like this, right? There's a highlight here. There's a highlight here, like that, right? There's a highlight here. Here you can see, for example, there's like a vertebrae. Yeah. So you're looking for those edges everywhere, and that's gonna, allow you to add, the necessary detail to your drawings. So here, for example, right, you're kind of going like this. Uh, yeah, this face is quite soft, but same thing. There's a hard edge here. It's kind of fading out like that, right? Can you see that? There's like that little corner here. So it's like that. There's an edge here. And then there's an edge here. And all those edges, they kind of flow into each other, right? So on the nose, for example, there's the edge of the outline. Then there's subtle one here. So you're kind of going like that. Like this. And they're flowing in all directions, right? And there's not really one rule on how to like hatch it, right? How to hatch, but like in the ear, for example, the ear is a beautiful collection of edges, right? So there's this here up. See if can I go smaller with my brush? Yeah, so hard edge. You hatch up until this edge. There's a hard edge. Here's a hard edge. Here's a hard edge. So you're hatching like this, then you're hatching like this, then you're going like that, right? Hard edge, hard edge. So you're hatching like that, right up until this edge. Yeah, that's what I do. There's a hard edge here. You're hatching. You're going around here, around that little, like that. Like it's a bit small, but you catch my drift, right? So the way the edge is flowing is kind of what dictates the edges of, right? So if you have an ear, Let's copy her ear a bit. So yeah, to render this ear, I would just go, follow the edges, chuck, 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 chuck. Right? So you're starting from one edge. That's what you're using, you know, as the direction of your hatching. Anyway. So that that what I just said is like it's very important for painting, but you can also already implement it when you're drawing, right? That way you kind of have a system uh, you can use when doing the lines. So for example, to make softer lines, you have, I kind of use this system, like the softer the edge, this is a hard edge, and then two lines is softer, and then like this is an even softer line, right? So these are also all lines, but this is a hard edge, this is a semi-hard edge, this is a soft edge, right? And you can go even softer, right? You're still using lines basically, right? uh, AR art. I saw this AI comic just today and it looked quite good. But you could see like yeah, you could really see the influence of it. Like it looked like a couple of like known comic book artists, but then it was mixed with this Möbius kind of like a dark ink style, and kind of looked quite good. I didn't read it, but yeah, we're fucked. And hey, I think you know as always, there's the people that can do stuff, and then there's the people that can't do stuff. And it's just like the people who can't are like happy right now. Yeah, and it was also probably written so he could make sense of the the actual drawings that he generated. It kind of looks like the drawings came before. Yes, AI is just it's a tool for people who can't who can't do things, right? And they don't want to do it. They want to get it for free, right? So that's why they're so happy with it. The thing is to be a matte painter. Matte painters they exist, right? And they've been using photographs to do their stuff from the beginning. But there's a huge difference between a matte painter and a guy who does, uh, you know, who pastes Photoshop, photos together in Photoshop to create something, right? A matte painter actually knows how to paint, and you can't make that jump from knowing how to use AI and then be someone who can actually make something out of that. If you like become if you have to make something useful out of it. But I might be wrong. Because the AI comic wasn't really, there wasn't a lot of extra editing going on there. Yeah, I read one. It was like clients will finally, clients will have to accurately describe what they want. That was a that's actually the most how do you say that, like smart one. I saw a guy from my yeah, there was someone from on a project I worked on. He used AI to create some textures, and that's about it. Like it was just textures. There at the moment, it's still like a glorified texturing machine, texture generator, basically. So the usual workflow of someone who does environments, right now it's just you use uh, 3D program like Blender to create a 3D base for your image, and then you paint over that. And the 3D part has become so big that they're just passing their models to the actual 3D artists. So the environment concept artists for they use 3D, and then the 3D goes straight to the modelers, and that process just makes so much sense, because in the end, like you're able to design in 3D, and then the workflow is so much faster because you can just give the 3D model to the modeler, right? Who can do whatever with it. So you don't have that when you use AI for environments, for example. Characters is a bit different, but the AI is so bad at doing the characters. I think it looks quite, everything looks super derivative. And yeah, the dudes who can't, the guys who can't, they also cannot see it that it's bad. It's also one of the like a strange rule is like you can only see if something is skilled if you actually have the skill or something. When you make it yourself. I don't know. It's some psychological bullshit, probably. Now I gotta invent her legs. Dunning-Kruger effect, yeah, that one. I mean, people can still see if things are good, but it's like Reddit taste. The art that gets popular on Reddit, for example, it's always this really crappy photographic drawings. Like a girl. Um, it's like a really super realistic pencil rendering of a photo. So they copy like the lens blur and everything, and then you get like the drops of water on the skin, and it's all like super translucent. And they're like, oh man, this is some art. And then yeah, that's kind of like the Dunning-Kruger effect, in my opinion, because it's always so, not that it's not skillfully done or anything, but you know those that kind of art is kind of gimmicky, because one, they're drawing super big, right? They're drawing so big, um, that you get and then take a picture and size it down, and then it looks way more, on a screen, then it looks more impressive. But if you look at those drawings up close, it's kind of like blurry, smudgy strokes. There's no real quality to it, right? If you have like a nice drawing on a smaller size, it just looks way better, I think, because then you got kind of like the skill of the hatching and stuff is visible, while on a big canvas, it's just kind of like, I mean, that's, I guess, my opinion. Eh, what was I saying? Yeah, so the AI art is a lot of the Dunning-Kruger effect, people thinking, oh man, this looks so impressive, but to a trained eye, it doesn't really look that impressive. But yeah, if that kind of mediocre garbage is what people want, then you guess you're not gonna stop it. I'll just have fun doing these little drawings. Why are you still drawing, man? You could just like AI at that shit. Just type in beautiful girl rendered pencil style. Yes, Claessens. Oh, I should just stop drawing. I just hope I can only hope they like put my shit in it, and then whenever I got a client, I just need to tap my prompt, and then I can get something in my style, and then I don't have to actually work anymore. I can just do some streams. I know that sounds terrible. I think the craftsmanship art is gonna come back like pretty hard, I think. I mean, people gotta be getting tired of like the modern art shit, right? At some point, it's gotta shift back over. Yeah, but some people see it. Some people see it, and that's why he makes things. I think I don't need Reddit to like my work, because I just need some people of the 7 billion people on the planet to like it. I don't need like the mass, the mass appeal. Craftsmanship is already coming back when she shows like Arcane. Yeah, I think that's a good example. Like things become so mediocre, then suddenly there's something that's not, and then you're like, oh, okay, we kind of want that. Because everything's so mediocre, then people just don't know the difference, and then when something good actually comes around, they're like, oh, what's this? We didn't know this was possible. Yeah, it's the same. It looks like it's been created by a bot. But the problem is kind of like there's a style in painting that was that it kind of copied, and now everyone who was working in that style kind of ripped off. Because even I find myself seeing certain art and then wondering like, okay, you know yeah, I just suddenly realized there's a new question. Like when you see something, you start to think like, is this AI generated? And you never thought about that before. But there is a certain painting style that looks like it kind of looks what the AI does now, right? it's some kind of painting style that's kind of like in between. And now they're like, you know, and that's kind of what I've been, I think why I've been going towards a more, you know, traditional way of working, right? I I kind of want to like show that I drew it, you know, by going back to this cross hatching style. But it's also the same. Like they could program a computer to first generate, you know, an image, and then, for example, redraw it in a hatching style, right? They could also do that. So at a certain point, I'm just gonna have to switch back to traditional, probably. But for me, it's easier to sell the brushes. Yeah, I saw my friend Jeff, or my colleague, I guess, Jeff Simpson, who's an extremely good artist. He's kind of upset by the entire AI stuff because he himself thinks his own stuff looks like AI. I kind of completely disagree, but because he's like super good. Alexander Mahubi. No, I don't know him. Oh yeah, I know him. But is it 3D or? Oh, it's cool. Yeah, you know, I think this kind of style, you know, is lends itself. I don't think this is out of reach for AI at all. I think stuff where it's more like, you know, anatomically correct, something like black sat or whatever, you know, like I think that's the stuff that's is gonna take a while because that guy, he does have like a, you know, he doesn't go like super hard on the anatomy. So I think that might, yeah, that might still be like easy for AI to copy. Unfortunately, because you know AI doesn't understand, you know, anything about anatomy. So just does stuff. Yeah, I tried to get it to draw something, uh, put my name in it, but it obviously didn't like train on my stuff. So I'm not that, I'm not that well known, so kind of helps. But if you're like lowish or something, lowish stuff, it clearly train on her images, and it even did like an overpaint of the AI, what the AI thing created. Like, don't help it. Let it be. Let it be sucky for a while still, please. It's like all these science fiction writers, they're like all trying to, like create these cautionary tales, like, this is what the future could look like, Skynet, whatever, whatever. And then all those like nerdy science dudes, they're like, oh, let's make it. Wouldn't it be cool if we actually made Skynet? They look at Black Mirror and they see a manual, basically drones that can find people and kill them. Sounds like a good idea. Art as does, of course, like everything that science created was first thought up by science fiction writers. Like almost everything, I think. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we were able to go to space? Okay, then they make a spacecraft. I need reference for those feet, I think. Just give it a go. All right. something like this. So I don't know what is happening on my Gumroad, like some really strange activity going on. So what's happening is that there's like a couple of email addresses that keep buying my brushes for other people. And so like the same email address uh, bought brushes for like 40 different people. It's very strange. And it's all like the the gifts are all for like uh, Chinese accounts. So the email address might say something like SF blah blah blah, and it's all like uh, the beneficiary of the gift is then like something from QQ.com, which I learned is a Chinese microblogging website. So I don't really know what's going on. Probably not gonna spend. I'm gonna wait for the ArtStation email. Like there's some suspicious activity going on your account. The brush is not. No, it's not free. It's also not expensive. You can get it like you can see the little linky thing. I think on the screen. You go to the page. No, it's not free because it's kind of like my sole income at the moment. Uh, I'm doing daily live stream demos for free, but the brush's not for free. No, what I think is like what I hear or what people explain me on Twitter was that Gumroad is banned in China. Um, so what makes sense is that there's probably some kind of reseller who's buying, like basically a front for ArtStation for Gumroad. Like you can buy all the products like a workaround. So instead of buying something on Gumroad, you buy something on that website, and then they buy it on right. Then they buy it. Uh, and then they gift it to a certain email address. But the thing that's weird is they in the beginning when it started they weren't using the gifting option. They were just using different emails, and now they're suddenly using the gifting option. Don't know what's going on. Yeah, like a reseller. Other ideas that it might be like an art course or something that requires my brushes. Which it's possible. But I'm not gonna complain too much about it. I'm not gonna spend any money though. Yeah, it might, if it might be from Gumroad itself. Maybe they like set something up in order to keep uh, getting money from it. So that's the feat from imagination. The nails. Let me just skip the shoes. I wanted to fit in this series basically, so they're all kind of more naked. And it's fun to try. It's a fun exercise to change your reference a bit, and then you're practicing more than just copying. Uh, by changing stuff. Then you gotta think more about anatomy. Stuff I also do, for example, is draw from a thumbnail instead of from the full resolution picture. Then you also have to like fill in gaps, and you're actually training your uh, imagine drawing from imagination. Uh, you don't always have to just copy. If you just mindlessly copy, you're not learning. Uh, it's not like the fullest potential learning. You're still learning a lot, of course. You're studying. Sometimes you can switch it up, make it a bit harder for yourself. Because you're not. If you want to learn how to draw something from imagination, it's a good idea to draw from imagination a lot. Like for example, the leg anatomy, you can see it like a little bit in here, right? Some some of those shapes. Mhm. Thanks for the follow. What do you think is the best ways to start learning values? I think you should start with uh, learning to separate the light from the shadow. Once you can do that, it's quite becomes quite easy. Uh, yeah, and also but then to actually learn shading, uh, you know, you, I did a lot of uh, pencil drawing, rendering, copying, drawing from imagination. But I learned it in a very unstructured way. And there's probably a faster way to learn. Hey, Jess. First step is you should read some theory to understand it conceptually. Um, so a big part of doing values is actually seeing them uh, and understanding how it works. Hey, I can hide it in shadow. That's a good idea. Yep. So you should be able to separate the light from the shadow, and then understand what's happening when something is uh, being lit by a light source. Uh, the relationship between how light something is and the angle towards the light source, for example. So the more form is angled towards your light source, the lighter it will be. Um, yeah, so let's say you have a light source here, right? And you have a couple of planes with different angles, like that. Wait, let's make the planes equal length. So we have a plane. So let's copy this. Right. And now let's make a number of light rays coming from the light source, right? So let's copy this and we turn it. You can already see that this plane is gonna catch a lot less light rays, right? Even though this plane is is being hit by your light source, you can see it's getting a lot less actual physical photons that hit that surface, right? From our original, I should have probably drawn it a bit more with equal distance, but you can see, of our original like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 photons. In this case, even though it's the same length, right? Only 3 of those photons are hitting that surface, right? So it's the same on the other side, right? So it's not going to be that much as, right, as this. So that's why it's lighter. And then, yeah, basically the form is also turning until there's a point where the light can't hit the, right? So as it's turning, the planes are getting darker and darker, right? Like on a sphere, as you're turning, right? Here's the highlight. It gets darker until it hits that point where the light cannot bend, the light can't bend around the curve, right? So that's this point, right? So the planes, they would keep getting darker until it, you have the breaking point where the light can't hit the actual surface, right? And this point is called the terminator. Other people will refer as core shadow, but it's not really the best term for it. Terminator is cool because it sounds like the Terminator, the robot. That's why it's a better name. Um, but yeah, so from this point on, everything is basically in shadow, right? So that's what you need to understand when you're. That's the first part, is understanding what's in the light and what's in the shadow. So once you start rendering, you'll switch, because the shadow has a different light source. It has the reflective light, right? So you're gonna treat that separately. But when I'm rendering here, what I'm doing right now is I'm basically rendering everything that's in the light. And personally, I like taking light sources that have most stuff in the light. So in this case, there's only these little triangles that are like shadow, right? So if you look at the reference here, most of her body is actually in the light. But there's other lighting situations where there's a lot more rendering to be done uh, in the shadow too. But yeah, so you need to remember every time that there's a plane change, there's a change in value as well, right? So for example, on this shoulder, you got this top plane right here, right? And then, okay, I'm really bad at this, but you have all these planes basically, right? So this has, this plane here is angled most toward the light source. I think the light source is probably going to be something like this, right? You can see the highlights here, like that. So this is going to be the lightest, but every time this shoulder is turning, it becomes a bit darker and darker, right? So it is the same every time the arm turns. It's like these gradations, right? Bands of value, basically, that wrap around that arm. And then yeah, there's also the idea, the overall value of your subject. So first, before you start drawing, analyze your picture, right? Um, so for example, on this one, we can see that there's a gradation going on from bottom to top or top to bottom, right? So what happens is when you have an artificial light source, yeah, right, you probably have some kind of photographic lamp here, right? It's called the inverse square law, right? So as light moves away from its source, it spreads out. The photons spread out. So the further away you go away from your light source, the less photons are actually hitting the same surface area, right? So if you have a right? If you so this, you know, this area all has the same amount of photons, right? The photons are spreading out, right? So if you have a square that's further away, it's gonna be hit by the same amount of photons, but it's a much bigger area. So naturally, it can't be as bright, right? That's why you have the sun here, you have the earth here, right? But then on Pluto, everything is quite dark, right? Even if you would be standing in the sun in a spacesuit, you would be hit by the sun, but the sun would be very, there wouldn't be as much light on you, right? Because it's much further away than the sun, right? But of course, if you're standing in the sunlight on Earth, that effect is so small that you can't see it when you're being lit by the sun, so that's an exception, right? So sunlight hits you pretty much with the same strength everywhere, theoretically. Yeah, like in physically there's probably some kind of fall off, but so small that you wouldn't notice. But that effect is still visible when you have something like a campfire light, or like a spotlight or something, right? So that's why this is happening, right? If you look at from the top, it starts out pretty bright, and as you go down, it becomes darker and darker, right? There is a shift. So if you put that shift in at the beginning of your, when you're painting something, I often like put a gradient, right? I first fill in my I can show you something I made here for 3D Total. So the way I paint a character is like I start out with like a sketch, right? Then I fill it in with a single value. Then I start kind of like putting in separating the light from the shadow, as I mentioned. So I separate. So this is not being hit by any direct light, all the black stuff. It's kind of a in between, because this area is definitely in the light, of course, but it's kind of a mix of the two. And here you can see I put in the gradient. So I just took this picture, I made a multiply layer, made a gradient from top to bottom, and then erased out the white of the background, right? So if you have this gradient already in your character, right? And you start rendering this area, and you're kind of picking, if you would paint on this with white, it would look completely out of place, right? So you would, be picking slightly darker colors to make highlights on that area, right? So here's what I do. So there's light plus shadow. You make the separation, right? Then you do the form painting. You add the form painting to it, and then the fall off of the light. That's what I just explained, right? And all those steps combined, they make this, right? So that's the rim light is a secondary light source, right? So that's a secondary light source that's lighting up a part of the shadow, right? Secondary light can be also anywhere, right? It doesn't need to be only lighting up the shadow. It can also light up the light part of your painting. But if you combine all those steps, you get this, right? So this is just me combining those couple, that's a stylized version of what I did, right? But just putting all those things on top of each other gives you something that looks quite like it's like form, right? So then I add like a uh, sepia tone on it, um, and then I erased the I removed the sepia tone from the rim lights, and so that stuff is still gray, kind of gives like a warm cool contrast. Uh, then I made a new layer, um, started adding some more local colors and stuff. Made the background dark, and then this is all a lot of just painting. Uh, yeah, and that was the final piece. So yeah, that's kind of the process of a painted character. Mm. Mm-mm. Mm. Great. So the reason why I'm not like creating a black line at the bottom, sometimes you gotta, there's a thing like the more pressure something, a foot has with the ground, right, or the closer there is, kind of eliminates the shadow. So if you look at the shoe, because the bottom of the shoe does this, right? It has this little corner, right? It comes loose from the ground here, right? So you see the shadow below it. That's what this darker line is, right? But the end of the shoe does it more than the side of the shoe. The side of the shoe is probably like pretty square, so it sits tighter, um, with the ground. So that's what you can do as well with the sketch. So some parts like the heel, they're not as tight, uh, close to the ground, for example. So if you create like a shoe or a sock, for example, right? You can kind of lift up the bottom by adding like a little shadow there. See, that's all I'm doing, and it lifts it up the page, right? It's just like a very effective way to show form on shoes and stuff. And if you need it to sit like tightly with the ground, you can just remove it, and then it kind of changes. So depending on where this shadow is, you're kind of changing the form, right? This form suddenly is something different than what we had, uh, before, just by changing the shadow. The goal of the sketch is just, to give a demo, to have fun. I think the sketch is pretty much done at this point. But having this like really contrasty shadow, it also draws the attention to what you drew there. So if you drew some really sucky feet, then maybe you don't want to like add it. Ooh, Charles. Hey, Charles. Load the catapults. Hey, I hope you had a good stream. I was about to stop actually. Now I gotta continue. So here's that trick that I was talking about. Just by adding a gradient, you can kind of put, ground your character more. uh, just to see if it needs it. So that's another trick here. This layer blend if option. So what you can do is you can like I made a multiply layer and put a gradient, but it's affecting everything, right? Also the white pixels. And here with this option, you can kind of like select um, which range of pixels it affects. So if you pull it a bit towards, you know, that side, it's not gonna affect the white pixels anymore, right? So and if you keep pulling it, it will stop affecting this kind of this range. And then if you press the Alt key, you can like make it blend more. So this is like hard, like hard value, right? And then if you press Alt, you can kind of make it blend, right? And then the other way around is the same. You pull. Hello, hello, hello. Am I back? Whew. Yeah, I'm done anyway. So let me see if I can do some levels trickery. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, hello, hello. Is it back? Oh man.